새마을운동 is a movement that seeks to promote residents' welfare and a community development movement whose goal is prosperity of residents, villages, and the country. It pursues spiritual and cultural well-being as well as economic prosperity and enriches both the current generation and the next generation. Even with much external support, unless residents themselves get on their feet and work to improve their lives and communities, the movement will fail. 새마을운동 is a grassroots campaign that encourages villagers to adapt the 새마을 spirit of diligence, self-help, and cooperation. It aims to motivate people to build a better future by increasing village income, improving neighborhood environment, and building self-confidence. Successful cases of 새마을운동 share one common feature, fulfilling the 새마을 spirit by building our village on our own without relying on others. 새마을운동 was implemented through competent village leaders along with the strong desire and solidarity of villagers. By working to eliminate the decadent activities of gambling and drinking, residents promoted a healthy lifestyle of diligence, frugality, and saving, and focused on increasing their income by using idle labor to cultivate land. Every household opened a deposit account in which to save money, and the income earned through community projects was accumulated as a village fund. As the central government's fiscal support was limited, villagers themselves worked to secure the financial resources necessary to develop their villages. As shown by the success stories, the essential elements of the effective implementation of 새마을운동 are people, organization, projects, work, and funds, money. 새마을운동 encouraged villagers to create organizations, explore projects necessary for their villages, and raise funds for carrying out projects. Raising funds was not easy because most villages lacked financial resources and the government's budget was small at the time. In this lecture, we will look at how village funds were raised for 새마을 projects, among other key elements of 새마을운동. Village funds were used to accumulate common village assets through the voluntary efforts of residents. They were a basic financial resources for funding village projects conducted for the benefit of all residents. Residents both raised and benefit from the fund. There is a saying, many a mickle makes a muckle, meaning that collecting a lot of even small trivial things can have large effects later. This is how village funds were collected. No matter how small the amounts are, continuous saving will eventually result in a large amount. People save not only for village funds, but for their own household as well. Village funds were needed for several purposes. First, the basic purpose of 새마을운동 was to have residents collaborate on projects without external support. Because the government could not provide sufficient financial support for 새마을운동 projects, residents provided labor and acquired other material necessary for projects on their own. The village improvement made through the participation of residents helped building confidence and foster solidarity, which was a valuable driving force for other new projects. Second, to implement a project that was desired by and beneficial for all residents, it was necessary to raise funds. Funds were used to install village halls, retail shops, playgrounds, warehouses, and workshops, and carry out village projects, such as operating farms and seeding facilities. In other words, raising funds was crucial to improve the village environment and increase income. Third, village funds played a financial role through the granting of loans to households for farming purposes. Funds raised by villagers themselves were lent to households at a rate lower than other commercial banks and were to be repaid after a certain period. farmers borrowed funds to purchase agricultural materials such as seed and fertilizer. As I mentioned earlier, village funds were the result of residents' hard work and dedication. Residents implemented 새마을운동 with enthusiasm and solidarity, and used village funds to boost household income and fund village projects, paving the way for sustainable 새마을운동. In this respect, village funds were highly meaningful. They led to economic independence as they enabled residents to implement community projects without external support. Village funds were collected based on the voluntary participation and trust of residents through legitimate procedures and managed in a transparent and secure way. So how were village funds raised? There are a few principles for raising village funds. First, it is necessary to clearly explain to residents the purpose and use of the funds. Second, village funds needs to be officially approved through a legitimate procedure such as a villagers' meeting. Third, residents' voluntary participation in projects is necessary, and a portion of a project income needs to be deposited into a village fund. Fourth, ways of continuously raising funds through village projects needs to be explored, and all residents should be informed of the status of village funds on a regular basis. Village funds can be raised through contributions made by residents, receipt of external support funds and donations, holding of bazaars, collection of fees for the use of village facilities, and generation of profits through village projects. In Korea, village funds were accumulated by collecting membership fees and profits from projects such as operation of livestock banks or raising of seedlings. In addition, villages were assigned projects by the government, and half of resulting labor income was distributed to residents, and the other half was deposited into village funds. Village funds were also raised through government subsidies, award money, bazaars, and the operation of barbershops, daycare centers, village shops, warehouses, and workshops. Method of raising village funds can vary by country, as it is best to raise funds in ways that are appropriate to each given region. Villages that receive support under 새마을운동 pilot village projects needs to use the project funds as village funds for seed money, or part of the profits earned by income-generating projects should be added to village funds. For example, fees for using public facilities, such as village halls, can be collected to accumulate village funds. In fact, Tanapin in Myanmar and Aral in Kyrgyzstan lends funds for projects and received principal and interest at the end of those projects, which were then used as seed money for other projects. Village funds can be raised by collecting some of the profits from the joint cultivation of idle land, joint raising of livestock, or sale of agricultural and livestock products. Funds can also be raised from a contribution made by residents and donation from community leaders. Use of village funds. Village funds should be used for common projects that can benefit all residents. In particular, they need to be invested primarily in projects that boost income through production activities or projects that increase village funds. When village funds reach a certain level, the lending of such funds to individual residents can be considered. Regarding the use of village funds, it is critical to obtain consent of residents in advance by holding a village meeting. Management of village funds. The most important part of village funds management is to conduct such management in the most secure and transparent way. First of all, residents' organization should be established, and a villagers' meeting needs to be decided on the organization and operation method of a village funds management committee based on the consensus of residents. The Village Funds Management Committee should be operated under shared responsibility of the 새마을 leader, village representatives, and village organization representatives. In addition, a resident who is familiar with accounting needs to be appointed as an auditor responsible for controlling the village funds. To ensure the transparent and secure management of village funds, the funds must be deposited with the financial institution in an account held by multiple individuals and entities, including the village leader, 새마을 leader, village development committee, and residents. The purpose of this is to prevent accidents that could occur if a single individual had exclusive access to the account. Moreover, the details of all account credits and debits needs to be reported to the villagers' meeting on a regular basis. As matters related to finance sometimes involve various stakeholders, fund management, and the fund management committee should be operated according to strict rules. Accounts of income and expenditures of village funds needs to be settled and closed at the end of each year. The account settlement of a village fund should be conducted under supervision of a village funds management committee and the result thereof submitted to the villagers' meeting. Furthermore, the status of fund management must be audited by an auditor on a regular basis or when necessary, and the audit result should be disclosed to the villagers' meeting and village organizations. It is more important to manage village funds transparently than is to actually collect the funds. If the funds are not trusted by residents due to lack of transparency, village projects are certain to fail. Regarding the management of village funds, we cannot overemphasize the importance of transparency and security. Necessity of village funds ledgers. The detail of village funds needs to be recorded in a ledger by an accountant under the supervision of a village funds management committee. All dates and times needs to be entered, and the entire should match those on the account statement. Account statements are clear evidence of the deposit and withdrawals of the funds. Receipt should be attached to each record of the use of the funds for year-end settlement and audits, and dates, details, and amount of revenue and expenditure needs to be recorded in a ledger. Meaning of a village assets. Village assets are assets jointly purchased with the village funds or purchased by residents. They include saplings, pigs, and chickens purchased and raised to increase village income, real estate such as warehouses, retail shops, and workshops built collaboratively by residents, and agricultural equipment and vehicles purchased jointly. In particular, it should be remembered that all assets and properties purchased and built as a part of a pilot village projects are common assets of the village. Because the purpose of 새마을운동 is to benefit not only an individual, but a whole village, everything achieved as a result of 새마을운동 pilot village projects should be kept and managed as common assets of the village. Village assets should be managed according to strict rules on the formation, maintenance, management, use, and disposal of a village assets. And the rights and obligations of users of such assets need to be provided for, including fees and ways of distributing profits and others. In addition, such rules need to be enacted through a resolution of residents by collecting the signature of all participating residents. Village assets should be managed transparently and effectively based on the decision of residents. A manager in charge of a management of a village assets should be selected and appointed from among 3 members of a village asset management committee, a village representative, the 새마을 leader, and a resident. In addition, village asset ledgers needs to be prepared and kept in such a way that they are accessible to all parties. And depending on local, legal, and institutional requirements, village assets may need to be officially registered with the central or local governments to secure legal ownership. This will preclude individuals from disposing of assets without permission. Furthermore, major issues related to the management of a village assets must be decided by a resolution of the village's meeting. These issues include the installation of a village assets jointly purchased by residents, acquisition or disposal of a village assets, village asset account settlement, and other matters that require a resolution of a village's meeting. The accounts of a village asset should be settled, closed, and audited in a transparent manner. The purpose of a village asset management rules is to provide for the rights and obligations of entrusted managers and residents. Because village assets are difficult for residents to maintain, an entrusted manager needs to be selected to manage village assets, and part of profit generation from such management should be added to the village funds. Although different countries have different conditions, rules on the management of a village asset should cover the entrusted management of rice paddies, fields, and woodlands, pigs, and cows purchased to boost village income, warehouses, rice mills, and retail shops, and farming equipment and vehicles. In particular, for pilot village projects, rules on the entrusted management of a village assets must be established. 새마을운동 is a movement that aims to develop villages and communities. The success of 새마을운동 can only be achieved through the active participation and solidarity of residents. Village funds are the foundation for sustainable 새마을운동, and it is thus important that village funds be operated transparently and securely. I hope that with diligence and frugality, you will successfully carry out various income-boosting projects, expand village funds, and ultimately achieve economic independence. Thank you.